Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And back like we never left, we're getting into playa props here for opening night on Tuesday here in the NBA. Looking forward to both of these games. We've also got best bets up from these games, a couple other looks in a separate episode. We're going to be bringing you both best bets and these playa props every single weekday that we have Hoop this year. So make sure to subscribe to that page and don't miss anything as we press forward. Nate, let's get right into it, baby, and let's talk about your first NBA playa prop here.
Yeah, I'm going to go LeBron over, not really going on a big limb here. But, I mean, the one thing I think is that he's going to feel like he put his neck out here, whether he actually advocated for it or not. Like, that's the perception, right? Is that LeBron got JJ Redick hired. LeBron got Darvin Ham fired. Like, this has followed him for years now. So I think he has to come out and prove that this offense is working. So I'll bundle the PRA together, 39.5. Although if I just taken one thing, I think plus 100 for him to score 25 is pretty good here against the Wolves. He has had success scoring the ball, and now Cat's out of there. Julius Randle's in there. It's be interesting to see how they match up at first, right? Because I mean, Jaden McDaniels guards LeBron is pretty much their only other option. I mean, you got Rudy on AD, and then Julius Randle is much easier for him to score on, but it's also LeBron on extra rest. I know he played in the Olympics, but we're still talking about like no preseason and 2 months of ramp up into game one here. So we saw on 2+ days last year, he averaged 26 and 7.7 and 8.5 assists. His minutes went up to 35. He shot 55%. Previous season on 2 days rest, 30 points per game, 8 and 7, played 37.5 minutes versus the normal like 35. We see in openers the last 3 years with this extra rest. I mean, just blew up against the Golden State Warriors for 2 years, 32.5 points per game, along with 13 boards. This will be a different type of game. I think we probably lean under, if anything, but I think the Redick Lakers are going to be playing faster in the half court, just with more tempo getting into their stuff, right? More creative sets, using LeBron more, the way he would like to envision it, I'm sure is like mind meld with JJ, like, oh yeah, I knew we were going to do that. Yep. And then just going out there and executing. And so I think there's going to be some points here for the Lakers. I would lean towards them on the money line, and I'll take some LeBron props.
I dig it. I mean, yeah, it's so great. We're coming out with our first episode of the season, and you just kick it off with, I'm going to go over for the best player in NBA history. Yes, that sounds like a fairly good plan very consistently, and especially in these rest spots, like we say. So if you want to take it all, great. I was looking at the assist too. I could definitely see him coming out and looking to get others involved in game one, sort of be the co-coach or co-captain, whatever, just a captain in general, however you want to put it. But very exciting to see what's going to happen. I'm going to take a first play here that's going to come from that game as well and talk about Rui. Rui over 11.5 points, minus 122. I'm playing a couple of things here. The sort of, the speculation that I'm using is Rui's going to be more involved in the offense. He's clearly a starter now. I think that should put him at about the 30-minute mark. That's what he was playing at the end of last year when he started getting inserted into that starting lineup. And really, even when he didn't start, he still played a lot more, but he started most of the last 30 games. And in the last 30 games of the season, at 30 minutes per game, over this number very consistently, 23 of the 30 games that he did that, 16.5 points per game, comfortably over this 12 points that he needs in this opener. So that's the speculation that I'm using, is that if he's used as much as he was at the end of last season, which is what JJ Redick has said, or at least hinted at and talked around, is that Rui is going to be a pretty important piece in the offense, especially as we see just how involved D'Angelo Russell is. We'll see how short of a leash he has for a lack of defense and that type of stuff. But my main point there is third-ish option. I mean, Reeves and D'Angelo Russell should all be looking at 10 to 12 shots per game, regardless, between them, and sometimes more if one of those guys is off. So I love the amount of shots that he's going to be taking. They went up from 9 to about almost 12 in those last 30 games. So he was obviously not just playing more, but as a result was still a little bit bigger part of the offense. And he seems to do really well against Minnesota. You got to bring big bodies in. Maybe it's not quite the same as last year, but they're still going to have plenty of size up and down the roster for Minnesota, which is why why you've seen Rui play a few more minutes. I will say 2 of the 4 games last year that he played against this team, LeBron was missing in 2 of those games, went over in both those, also went over with him in just 24 minutes. And so I just like the numbers when you extrapolate him at about 26 minutes per game, which is what he was at for the first half of last year, up into about the 30 to 31 range where he should be moving forward. Then these numbers look really good.
Yeah, and the Lakers are a little thinner because Jared Vanderbilt's not ready for the start of the season, right? I guess the one concern maybe is that Dalton Connect could get hot and they need more offense. But I mean, in this matchup with the Wolves, like you outlined, like, yeah, you need the size. You need LeBron to get a little bit of a break maybe on defense. Rui maybe guards the guy I'm going to talk about again, Julius Randle. Yeah. I mentioned both LeBron and him in the SGP because, look, it's night one. I don't want to try to forecast too much. I just want to go with the things that I think that I can expect in terms of Julius Randle also coming out with something to prove against his former team, who he's averaged really good numbers. So, yeah, I'll take the 26.5 points and rebounds here. And he's averaged 25 points in his career. Against Lakers, 30% usage his last 5, 32% usage with the Knicks. I cover some of this in the game video, but just want to go again. Like, I mean, he's still going to have high usage here with this Wolves team because Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert are extremely low usage players. And Edwards is not your typical like alpha, like I'm going to hog the ball. He has 28% or lower usage in 4 of his last 5 against the Lakers. He was seen deferring in the playoffs, and he's just kind of like an affable, lovable guy who's just going to probably want to welcome Randle to the team and let him get some shots up and let him do his thing. In terms of an underrated playmaker and a guy who I'm surprised to see he's had such consistent success against AD and LeBron because he's that strong, right? It's like AD can't even like keep him from getting to his spots and shooting the way. And look, I mean, his shoulder injury might be a concern, but I mean, Naz Reid also dealing with the shoulder. I think Randall's props are in a buy low spot because of the unknowns about his shoulder. But let's look at like the overall season outlook here. I mean, he said how much he loves Chris Finch from his time on the NOLA staff. He's either playing for an extension to be part of this Wolves team going forward to get a player option, or I mean, so that they don't have to have him use his player option, which he's probably going to get out of. Or if it's not working and it's really clunky, which we saw for a while with Cat, then they again move on from him and they need a better floor spacer alongside Rudy. But either way, Minnesota wants to showcase him, right? I mean, he has an extremely tradable contract that expiring is going to be valuable to lots of different people if they decide to move on from him. But first, they have to prove that he's still Julius Randle averaging 20 and 8, right? Which is what he's done for years. And I think what he starts from night one here.
Yeah. Totally, I'm totally with it. I mean, he's got stuff to play for individually, no matter how you put it. And it's kind of almost not the same situation at all. It's in New Orleans, but that was the last time I remember him playing for that type of next contract. He was still sort of a good stats, bad team kind of guy. I'm not convinced that he's not that yet, although he did show a willingness to pass and take better shots in the rhythm of the offense with the Knicks last year, in part because Jalen Brunson was there. And you kind of talk about the affable nature of Ant, which talk about a guy that if anybody ever looked like a guy who would say, it's your world, dog, like that is for sure something Ant has said on a court multiple times. But either way, he's still that way. But I also think Julius Randle has probably softened a bit the way that he did to Jalen Brunson, being like, look, we're at our best when Jalen Brunson has the ball in his hands the majority of the time. And I get it. And I get in a little bit more where I fit in, even though I'm clearly still the second option and the second best option off the dribble. And that's why I also love Julius, is both he and Dante DiVincenzo are bringing skills that they need on the Minnesota offense. Cat brought some of it, but even that is going to be much different from what Julius Randle brings, I believe, with the ability to also like pass off the dribble driving. They have similar games in that sense, but I think there's a little bit more slitheriness to Julius Randle than Cat, who's a bit more of a power player. It's going to be, I think, a really nice fit for both him and Dante DiVincenzo. But let me close out with the C's and the Knicks. This is our only play a prop in this video from that. But I am going to take an under for Peyton Pusha P Pritchard. That's my nickname for him. You can get that at 12.5. That's minus 125 on BetMGM is the best number. A couple other places have 12.5 under PA for Pritchard. Also, though, if you have to take it at 11.5, I would do that to about minus 115. And then anything other than that, you're losing a little bit of the edge. But I really love this bet because I think we're getting a situation where the books are, either overvaluing Peyton Pritchard right now, or they assume that the public's last memory of Peyton Pritchard was him having a heavy involvement in the playoffs, or in just those minutes that were like, let's say 12-ish, 15 minutes a game, and being very involved in the offense during that time. I just do not see that being the case. If you have under 3.5 assists alone, I love that bet. But I like putting him together because sometimes he gets run off the line, then he's able to get more assists. Sometimes he doesn't, and then he's pulling that shot. I don't think he's going to get both. That's why I really like the combo. But this is a situation where he just didn't do this last year outside of those games where multiple guys for the Celtics were sitting and he ended up getting 35 to 40 minutes. One game he had 44 minutes because he also played all of it and then into overtime at the end of the season when he's the only guy on the floor that you've heard of for the Celtics, right? So I took out those games and just said, all right, when he plays a max of 25 minutes, and he averaged 22 minutes a game last season, when he averaged 9 points per game in that time frame and like 2 assists, so right at about 11.5. But what about in the games where he only played 25 minutes max? He went under in 46 of 55 games. So in the games that weren't blowouts, because he's coming in for most of the fourth quarter, or games where they have multiple Drew, Derek White, and maybe one of the Jays missing, like he's not coming in for more than 25 minutes. So even 25 minutes as a ceiling is somewhat generous for him with that assumption. He only averaged roughly 8 points and assists combined in those 55 games I just mentioned where he didn't play 35 minutes, but also had Drew Holiday in there. So maybe there's something to the idea that Drew Holiday is listed on the injury report. And this is the only sort of devil's advocate that I could have to this bet is Drew Holiday isn't playing in the games where Drew was out and he was the only one out, like maybe Derek White was still playing, etc. Then, Peyton Pritchard has much better numbers and he does hit this a lot more frequently and his minutes go up. But I see Drew playing. There's no real injury there. There's just rest listed next to his name. So I'm going to feel really good about under 13 PA for PP.
Yeah, and him being the kind of the human victory cigar is the only concern there. Where there's like, if the Celtics are just a runaway train here, the Knicks are taking time to get used to their new personnel, and they can't hang in the second half. Then PP might be playing the whole fourth quarter, and then you're in trouble. Yeah. But if it's competitive, which is what I expect here, like I don't think he has a place out there against this Knicks starting lineup, which is now just huge. Like he's not guarding Jalen Brunson. And then who's he going to guard? Like, yeah. So I mean, Sam Hauser is somebody I would look at maybe overs more so than Pritchard. I mean, he just locked up the 4-year extension, right? I think the Celtics are trusting him a lot more to be that sixth man and to provide some size here while they don't have Porzingis for months. So like his look here more on the overs and PP on the under.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on Hauser. I think he is. I mean, most sort of in his making the case for him would be that he isn't a liability on defense. I really, everyone tried to attack him. He was very solid in his matchups, has good size and strength. So I like that. I just want to close on one question: Luke Cornett or Xavier Tillman? Like Luke Cornett's the only one with props up, but who's going to be the backup here?
I mean, I would play Tillman as Joe Mazzulla. Yeah, I think he would do a much better job on Cat than Luke Cornett.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we only have props up for Luke Cornett. I'm almost tempted to take the under, but that's all we have for today. We are already back into it, baby, and ready to keep moving on. So make sure to subscribe to that page. We got these play up props. Also have another video that we'll have up every single weekday alongside these, the best bets that we've got as well. So until we see you next, happy betting.